I was born in the northeast of Brazil, a region known by its marvelous beaches. I was a very beautiful child, and everyone used to pay attention to me when I was out with my parents. Fortunately, my parents always took care of me, and never let me even for 1 second alone with strangers. Our house was a fortress, like many houses here. We have giant walls and fences all around the house. When it happened, I was 5 or 6 years old, in 1995 or 96, and was going out with my mother to the farmer's market in the downtown. I used to live about 5 or 8 minutes from it. It was morning, and there were a lot of people at the bus stop, including this creepy woman standing right in front of us. There was nothing really creepy about her looks, but I remember that she was the first person I noticed when we stopped there. I always had a strong gut feeling to what people are up to, and I didn't like the feel of her when I glanced. She was wearing a sleeveless white shirt, blue jeans and black shoes, really 90s. She was looking around, like she was looking for someone, and then she looked back and saw me. It was the only time she gave a glance to my mom, really fast. After that, she couldn't take her eyes off me. Before, combis were kind of public transportation too. When this one arrived, my mom pulled my hand gently to warn me we should go in that car. Before we got in, this woman ran and passed in front of me to sit in the middle bench, where we were going to sit. It was okay. We got in anyway, and I sat with this woman on my left and my mom on my right side. Until here, my face was the same. I never smiled, talked, or did anything different than give this woman a mean stare. I didn't like her, and wanted to show that I knew she was a problem. But once I sat on her side, she started to grin in a creepy way, and started to bend to try and talk to me, really low. I ignored her. I wanted to look to the other side, but I felt that I needed to pay attention to whatever she could do. I needed to have her in my field of vision. I remember her asking my name, my age, if I liked my school, and I remained silent and touched my mom's leg. My mom noticed right away, and told her out loud, "Stop trying to talk to my child." The woman was ignoring my mom, and kept trying to make me talk to her, so my mom yelled again, "You want to talk? Talk to me, you bitch!" She moved me to her right side, staying between me and this creepy woman. Even with my mom in the middle, the woman didn't stop trying to talk to me, and I remember my mom telling me to show my tongue to her to try and make her stop. I did the best I could, showed my tongue with a really mean face, but she still had the creepiest grin. Meanwhile, it was our destination, and my mom got out of the combi really fast with me and started walking. And that's when the scariest moment of my life happened. I had the strangest feeling that I needed to look back, and I did, only to find that the woman had also left after us. I saw her standing up in front of the car, looking at us walking, and then she looked to her left side, which was an avenue. I felt that I had to follow her eyes, and I did it again. I thank myself every day that I followed my instincts. I found out that she was looking at 2 men standing in the other side of the avenue, and she gave them a kind of signal with her hands and pointed at us. They spotted us in the crowd and started running towards us. I pulled my mom's arm and told her to watch out. My mom told me gently, but scared, to run like I never have before and to never let go of her hand. I did it. I ran as fast as I could with my mom while we were being chased by 3 strange people. We were done if they caught us. These guys were really tall and really fast. One of them, a skinny blonde guy with a white shirt, blue jeans, and a funny hat. The other was a muscled black man with a dark shirt and also blue jeans. My mom didn't want to stop and ask for help without a police car near us. In Brazil, people are really helpful, and the farmer's market was crowded that day. But what if nobody decided to help after seeing the giant guys chasing us? My mom didn't want to give it a try and maybe lose me, so we ran as fast as we could, in between many streets and the main church. We ran 4 or 5 rounds around that church, and then a police car appeared parking in front of it. We ran until we reached the middle of the patio, and my mom turned back and started screaming for help, so I yelled for help too. Then the crowd stopped and tried to help hold the guys while the police noticed it and came to my rescue. My mom yelled everything that they were trying to do to us, and that the woman was following us, but in the confusion, the woman got away. The police arrested the two guys, and they were known criminals. Meanwhile, a friend of my mom that used to drive combis saw us and offered to take us home. My mom accepted, and we went home without pressing any charges. We both thought it was wrong. We wanted to make sure that they got punished for it, but at that time it seemed like the best decision. We just wanted to get out of there, and it took me weeks to get out again. A few weeks later, I got really happy that we didn't go to the police station that day. Our friend, who was our neighbor, called my mom to tell her to check Channel 2, the local news, and see if it was the same lady we had seen. My mom and I sat to watch it, and there was the same woman, arrested for trying to kidnap a kid in a city nearby, with two other giant scary guys. In the end, they mentioned she was a known member of a kidnap chain that sells children's organs in the black market and sometimes sells kids to foreign families to adopt. I tried to find this news video, but it was a local TV news in 1995 or 96, and I don't even remember what month. It's pretty hard to find, and there's no way to find it online for obvious reasons. I got happy, because these people could never ever have access to our documents. Well, it would be easy to get if my mom pressed charges. Never underestimate the corruption of officers, so they'll probably never find me again. This happened about 9 years ago. It was not long after I'd moved into a new neighborhood, and I was 13 at the time. My commute to school was drastically longer, and so I would meet up with my friend that lived about 10 minutes away from my house to make the long commute less dreadful. The bus station was a 2-minute walk from my friend's house, and I would take the same route back home when I got off from school, which in the wintertime would put me outside walking in the half-lit streets way after sundown. It was a November night from what I can recall. I was wearing a long baggy sweater that went down to my thighs, thick black leggings and Uggs, and I was still freezing. Me and my friend got off school, walked to the bus station, and got on the bus home. The ride went smoothly. We were talking and probably being louder than most, caught up in our gossip and jokes as pubescent girls do. I don't recall exactly when I noticed this much older guy was staring at us, but I remember shrugging it off and even making a joke about it to my friend. As we got off the bus, I was commenting to my friend that the man got off at the same stop as we did, and I was uncomfortable but trying not to let it show. My friend offered a couple times for me to stop by at her house and call my mom to pick me up, because she too was freaked out by this man, but I refused. I was at that point in life where you think you're invincible, and I was pretty sure I was just overreacting. After all, I was only 13 and looked it, while this man was well into his 30s. So I say goodbye to my friend and start my lonely walk home. About 2 minutes in, there's a good stretch of road that passes next to a primary school, so there's a bigger area that's dimly lit and scarcely populated at night. Given that it was winter and it was a particularly cold night, this street was absolutely deserted. I was aware of the man's presence. At the beginning, he walked behind me, and I decided to let him pass me just so I could make sure he wasn't following me. I pretended to be looking at my phone as I slowed down, and was holding my breath, knowing that he was coming closer. He went around me and whispered something at me. Probably profanities, but I hardly heard him over the pounding in my ears. I let him get a good distance ahead, and I foolishly carried on with my walk home, him ahead of me. We walked like this for about 100 meters, and at this point the street opens up to other streets on my right side every 50 meters or so, making a T-shape at the point they intersect. To get home, I can keep walking straight, or I can take an alternative and even less lit route. But this was still the safer version, so I decided to stick with it. So there I am, walking behind this creep of a man, when I start to pick up on what he's doing. As he was walking ahead of me, he would pass the upcoming turn to my right, stop right next to the intersection, and turned around to see if I kept going or walked to the right. And this is when I start to panic, feeling trapped and unsure of what I should do. I kept walking straight ahead because every street that I passed to my right was absolutely pitch, and I was terrified he would corner me somewhere. My mind was rushing, trying to figure a way out. If I took any of the alternative routes, I would have to run, and my heavy messenger-type school bag made that very difficult, as it would tangle up with my legs. I was also unaware of how well this guy knew my neighborhood. If he knew it even half as well as I did, he could easily cross my path at some point, as I was still a good distance from home. The alternative streets being pitch also didn't help because there was a lot of snow accumulation that had hardened from the cold. If I tripped at any point while running away, I was screwed. I kept walking, him ahead, stopping every few meters and staring at me in the most sinister way. I still had about 300 meters to the nearest store, and I was praying I would make it so that I could call my mom to come pick me up. But then I remembered that my mom would most likely come pick me up by car, and if this guy was determined enough to harm me, he could very easily narrow down my house just by the car parked in front of it. Not wanting to put my family in danger, I decided to just keep going, fully aware of the risks and absolutely terrified. Suddenly, I hear someone calling me from behind. It was this little old lady walking with what I presume was her grandson, who was probably in his early 20s. She had noticed the situation and called me over so we could walk together. She asked me where I lived and I explained, but her house was on the next right turn and mine was still a good distance away. The creep was still following my every move, so I decided my best bet was to turn the corner with this woman and then make a run for it on the pitch black inner streets. I said goodbye to the old lady and bolted down into the dark. I was running on pure adrenaline, as I barely even remember sprinting. I remember being so afraid that he would be waiting for me at the next turn and just drag me off into the bushes. But he wasn't, and he didn't. I made it home, breathless and afraid. And the shaking and crying started a couple minutes after I sat down. This whole ordeal has made me anxious to leave my house for a good 2 months, but I never saw the man again. This went on over the course of a year, with the last incident taking place in December of 2016. I used to own this green 1998 Toyota Camry. It was my grandmother's until she gifted it to my parents, who eventually gave it to me as my first car. It was nice and reliable, but I have a bad habit of letting my cars accumulate a bunch of stuff before cleaning them out. And because I still lived with my parents, they would use the car from time to time if they needed it. One day, I noticed a bunch of fishing lines with hooks on them in the back of my car on one of the rare occasions that I decided to clean it out. A bunch of the hooks are embedded into the upholstery, and more are between the creases on the seat. It took me a while to get them all out, and I almost pricked myself several times doing it. I have no idea how long they were there, as the last time I'd cleaned my car out was months ago. At any rate, I'm annoyed. At first, I thought that my dad had put them there, as he had recently used my car to transport a bunch of old junk for a garage sale. I asked him about it, but he told me he's never seen any fishing hooks or lines in any of the old stuff of ours, and nobody in the family even fishes, so it wouldn't make any sense for us to have it. He's also the only other person that's used my car at all in the past year or two. I'm the kind of person who locks up everything every night. I triple-check my car doors, and if I'm even a little uncertain as to whether or not I locked up, I'll go back to my car and check, no matter the inconvenience. I also park it where I can see it from my bedroom window, and hear if anyone tries to tamper with it, so I doubted anyone could have broken in, and I assumed my dad just missed it. I didn't think any more of it, until a month later when I found even more fish hooks in my back seat. At this point, I asked my dad about it again, but he figures I'm either pulling a weird prank on him or someone's breaking into my car. I wonder, though, why anyone would break into my car, not to steal anything out of it, but to leave fishing hooks instead. It just didn't make sense to me. To give you an idea about how weird this is, I live in a neighborhood where everyone knows everyone. We all talk, and even have a private Facebook group that started due to a drug house at the end of the street cropping up. And there's a sort of neighborhood watch group that always posts whenever something suspicious happens. So I don't have any neighbors I don't know for miles, and none of the ones I do know are shady at all. Again, without any explanation or clear motive, as the days and weeks pass, it fades to the back of my head. I get a new job selling mattresses, as I'd been unemployed focusing on school for a while, and move out of my parents' house to live with my girlfriend. And this is where things turn from weird to extremely unsettling. One night, we decided to go to a nearby Winco to get something to make food with, and I noticed my back seat has a bunch of fishing lines and hooks in it again. Startled, I look around for any sign of someone being nearby. I tell her to go back to the house, and I sit up and stare at my car until morning comes from our bedroom window. And this is after triple-checking every door and window to ensure they were all locked, but I don't see anyone or anything. I get ready for work, and she gets ready for her college courses. Then we leave. The store I was working at during this time had a weird L-shaped design to it, with 2 different entrances and a cafe taking up the space between them. There was one entrance that was easily visible from the front desk, and another that you would have to get up to go see. As I was closing up for the night after the last incident, I go to turn off the open signs, and see in the center of the obscured hallway an entire roll of fishing line, coiled up, but with some of the line leading to the door where a pile of hooks sat. I had no customers that day, and never heard the alarm go off. I then noticed that someone had turned the alarms for the doors off, but neither I nor the only coworker had ever tampered with the device before then, and it was behind the front desk. I was shaking. Someone had been stalking me and leaving these lines, but I had no idea what to do. Call the police? Other than the fishing lines and hooks, there was really nothing to trace back to anyone. My store had no cameras, and corporate would never agree to installing them. Neither my family nor my girlfriends could afford security cameras either. I figured the best I could do would be not to appear as frightened as I was, in case whoever was doing this was watching me. I thought if seeing something like this didn't make me go about my day any differently, and I didn't give whatever reaction this person was looking for, that they might give up and go away. For several more months, I would find fishing lines and hooks in my car, despite it being locked, and my parents, the only people with extra keys, being much too busy with the construction of their new house and their jobs to take time out of their day to prank me. Once or twice I would leave notes in my car asking whoever it was why they were doing this, and to stop. In the morning I would find the notes gone whenever the lines and hooks appeared, but with no response. Finally, after a series of misunderstandings and disagreements with her family, I decided to move out of my girlfriend's house and moved in with a couple of friends into their apartment so my parents' new house could be completed. The very last time I had an encounter with the lines and hooks, I came home from work to find them strewn about the living room. Stuff was knocked over and a few things broken, but nothing was taken. My friend, his girlfriend, and their baby were all gone at the time, so no one was home when this happened, save for his cats, which were absolutely spooked and wouldn't come out from under the bed for hours. I still don't know what this person wanted, why they were stalking me in the first place, or what the fishing lines and hooks meant. No one I know is huge into fishing, and I specifically go out of my way not to make enemies or cross people, even purposefully giving people more than I take from them so that I don't seem like I'm out for myself. I really don't know if it was someone I know or a stranger really good at covering their tracks and freaking people out. All I know is that I'll have anxiety over this for the rest of my life, and I routinely stay up until 4 or 5 in the morning, because in addition to several other traumatizing experiences, this has made every bump in the night a potential threat to me. It's been almost 9 months since I've seen anything more from this person, but instead of feeling better, I feel more uneasy that someone followed me through that many changes in my life, I didn't do anything further than breaking into my work and my friend's house, but that any time they could, because no safety measures seemed to deter them. I seemed to have created a little confusion as to the status of my relationship with my girlfriend. After moving out of her place, we stayed together and are still together to this day. Also, she doesn't have a driver's license, so it couldn't be her. Thank you to everyone who read, though. Well, I've lurked here for a while, and decided to share my own story. This happened 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, so I would have been either 21 or 22. Small amount of backstory first. I was diagnosed with narcolepsy when I was 16. It's not a huge deal, but sleep has always been an issue for me, whether it's insomnia or just nodding off at completely inappropriate times. I also typically ride the subway to and from my job, since traffic is super annoying to deal with and the subway station is within walking distance of my apartment building anyway. I ended up working overtime that night, so obviously I got off work later than what I was supposed to. It was about 8:30 p.m., so it was kind of dark out, and I was making my way to the station. I was just casually making my way downtown, not walking particularly fast, but I was indeed homebound. After a bit of walking, I could hear someone's footsteps behind me. I glanced back to see a pretty normal-looking guy about 10 feet behind me staring at his phone. He looked to be around his mid to late 20s, was clean, and was dressed up nicely. Nothing super fancy, but it was obvious he wasn't poor. I didn't think much of it and just assumed he was any other person walking home from work. After I noticed he had been right behind me for 2 blocks now, I decided to try changing up the route I was going, just to make sure nothing weird was going on. He could have been heading to the subway just like me, but I wanted to be safe. During the last block there, I purposely made an unnecessary turn that pretty much just led to a loop back around to the station, rather than straight towards it. He went right along with me. For some reason, most likely because I'm very stupid and lack decent reasoning abilities, I decided that turning around and talking to him was a good idea. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that. And once more, with all my crappy reasoning abilities, I straight up say, "Why are you following me?" And the guy stares at me a moment before laughing and saying he was so focused on what he was doing on his phone he must have ended up accidentally tailing me. Because I'm pretty gullible, I just believed him on the spot, laughing and saying how I've done that exact same thing before. He then starts turning around and walks in the opposite direction. I make it to the station safely, wait a little bit for the train to arrive, and then take my seat. It wasn't very crowded inside, probably because it was a weekday and now somewhere around 9 p.m. I headed straight for the seats that were off in the corner away from the other few people that were there. As I'm waiting for everyone on board the train so I can leave, guess who I could see walk in? Yep, the guy who was following me earlier. As he walked in, he looked right at me and took a seat relatively far from me. I didn't think much of it because he could just be heading home as well. After a few minutes, I started to get really tired, and you guessed it, I accidentally fell asleep in my seat. I couldn't have been asleep for more than 10 minutes or so before I woke up, but when I did, it was the creepiest thing. The guy from earlier was now sitting directly across from me and had his phone held in front of him, obviously taking pictures. He jumped a little when I sat up straight and proceeded with my very elegant response of, "Whoa, what the?" Now here comes the worst part. He didn't even try to hide that he was taking pictures of me. He instead looked me right in the eyes and smiled as he said, "I'm sorry. You just looked so pretty while you were sleeping." I wasn't really sure how to respond to that, but I was creeped out to the max and told him that he needed to delete the pictures he took of me right now. He apologized and then tapped on his phone a few times. Looking back, I should have demanded that he show me his phone to prove it. He could have just faked it for all I know. Thankfully, I got up and moved to a different seat, but he just sat there, staring and smiling at me the whole time. Thankfully, he didn't try to follow me anymore after that, But what he said, in addition to him waiting until I was unconscious to move next to me and take pictures of me, still gives me the major heebie-jeebies. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave feedback in the comments below, as well as perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a personal story that you'd like to submit, or you'd like to just send me a message, links to all of my social media will be in the description for the video below. This includes my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the theme of the story is, if it has any, the name of the story, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious at all about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description below, in the order which it appears. I also have links to the artists and list the tracks by name, just in case you want to find more of their work. Last but not least, if you have any criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.